Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the 10-8 Fightcast. Trevor and Dylan here, and today we're going to be talking mostly about UFC of this past week, because the fights were actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And then we'll be talking a little bit about Bellator. We've never talked about Bellator on the show, but there's literally nothing else going on this weekend, and two of the fights were actually pretty interesting. So we'll get started by talking about UFC. We watched the main card together, but I know we watched the prelims too. We'll go ahead and start at the top, work our way down. Corey Sandhagen defeating Song Yadong via doctor stoppage before the fifth round. And that was a brilliant performance by Corey Sandhagen.
Absolutely. And we were talking about, Corey Sandhagen and the Peter Yan fight would have gotten knocked out in this fight. Is how we kind of saw it. And he was just that he leveled up. And, he's one of those guys where, it sucks to see Sandhagen lose. But, man, every time he comes back from the loss, he just grows by leaps and bounds.
I really felt like he just showed why he's so well regarded as far as his fight IQ goes. Because, he knows he's not the greatest wrestler in the world.
Right.
But he didn't need to be in this fight to really make it, to give the wrestling presence. And he was using the wrestling to set up the striking. And really mixing the martial arts.
It's like Chuck Liddell went to Harvard.
Yeah.
The way that he uses his wrestling to help counter on the outside and create exits to strikes, and the way he set up his elbows at a just outside of clinch range, but just inside of a shot range, and he controls that space with that presence and his short shots, his short pocket punching for a long guy. It sucks so much to run into people that can punch at every length of a jab, and that's where as soon as they get inside those punches, pink. And he pops the elbow right in. It's just masterful of his evolution of striking for MMA. We get to see Evan Arredondo's out there, and Evan talks about it. Every time he comes back, I pick his brain, and he's just it's like they're in the Matrix.
It's a different world for sure. And speaking of a different world, I felt like there was definitely a world between Song Yadong and Corey Sandhagen as far as the striking goes.
Yeah.
Song can't really.
He focuses a lot on the wrestling to force striking exchanges, to catch guys on push breaks to power hooks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
or he's good about reading people's BS and catching people when they do a takedown feint and they'll pop up. He'll step back and catch them. But he does that off of if someone else does low volume is when he finds his best shots.
God damn if he isn't tough, too.
But he is so fucking tough. He's a little Terminator.
He kind of proved he was tough this weekend.
He's tough. But I think he also learned, shit, there's levels to this.
Yeah.
And, and there's not much more, fine-tuning. It's just the right repetition in the gym. It's, what he has, you don't have to teach or instill. So he's one of those guys where it's just like coaching a race car.
Yeah.
Where you just have to make I think you have to get him removed from any amateur sparring habits and focus on really polishing up, because he's a young cat, right? He hasn't been doing this long. So all we saw is that fine line of you can't make these fucking amateur striking mistakes. And it's not even mistakes; it's the right thing for that level. But you can't do that against Sandhagen.
He has such a level of power that it's if he can hit you with a one step in hook, you're gonna feel it.
Don't go to the top 5 looking for a brawl. Essentially,
yeah, that's true. Especially in this division,
exactly.
This is the toughest division.
You look at that
world.
top 5, and you're just the fucking ninjas. Jesus Christ, it's like Mortal Kombat and Tekken in life. I'm not convinced that they're real people.
35
with the UFC,
are like that.
UFC video game graphics, man, I'm pretty sure it's a simulation. Fuck me.
Especially watching some of those guys, as long as I've been watching TJ Dillashaw, I've always been thoroughly impressed with how everything is done with such a level of technique that if he's not known as the hardest hitting guy in the world, but he sets everything up in a way where he catches everything just right.
He catches people walking into a shot.
And he can really fucking rock people. He decimated Cody's chin. Cody's chin was really never the same after those two fights. But 35 is just one of those divisions, and we'll talk a little bit more about 35 in a little bit when we talk about the Contender Series, because that's where that kid came out. So, Song Yadong showed that he was ready to mix it up in the top 10, and definitely could see him.
He sees what he has to do to become top 5, and we're about to see him fuck shit up, I think.
Yeah, for sure. He's got a long time ahead of him. Could still be champion. It's not one of those fights where
he's so young.
There are some guys where you lose to a top 5 guy and you're like, that's probably it. Especially in a division like this where Bantamweight's a little bit different because of the Jan situation. It's like they gave a title shot to TJ because they didn't really want to give one to Jan again.
Yeah.
So they had to like figure something out. So there's like a little bit of room for Sandhagen now to slide in somewhere. Mm-hmm. Especially Cheeto's now in the mix. They're talking about doing Sandhagen versus Cheeto next.
Please.
Do you like that fight better than him versus Marab?
Yeah.
I like it too.
Just because
it's
more
bound
fun.
to be more entertaining.
Yeah, it's just more entertaining, yeah. Those guys are both absolute fucking assassins.
I kind of want to see where... Because Sandhagen obviously has improved his grappling since the last time we saw him. But I'd like to find out how much, and you'll definitely find out against a guy like Mozar.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, Marab.
Yeah.
Mozar's the other guy.
Well, Sandhagen's intelligent about where he needs frames as soon as he hits the ground.
Correct.
And how he controls like the underhook and his head pressure. Like, it's very basic wrestling control that he'll start filling back in with strikes right off the bat. And and I tell people all the time, man, it's like you got to know where your ass is going to go when you hit that mat. And it cannot be straight down. Like, he never had his asshole towards the mat. He's always off with, like, frames in between his body, his butt, and his hips being out, you know?
Yeah.
It really helps control that space when he hits the ground.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, his biggest slight against him is that he was out-grappled and destroyed in, like, 30 seconds by Aldo. But, like, Aldo is extremely underrated. It's crazy that you can be the champion of a division
and Sandhagen said he was just like, fuck, man, I didn't know. He said, like, that loss hurt, but he said at the same time, he's like, I thought I knew. He's like, but now I know.
Yeah, even in the minds of pundits and like fans, it's like,
also way easier to get choked out in 30 seconds than it is to get knocked the fuck out in 30 seconds, because like then you're shook up for the next time. But like, dude, coming off like submission losses, like people's like, man, shit. Bummer.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Yeah. Quick turnaround is like one of those things.
Yeah, Aljo's a nightmare on the back, dude. He gets on your back. And
his control time against Jan, it was like 10-8 rounds.
Yeah, that's what makes it preposterous to me that fans and pundits have it in their minds that he's kind of he's underrated as champion. In my opinion, it's crazy that you can be a champion of a weight class. I understand after the first fight, but after the second fight where he rode Jan and really controlled him, how can there be any doubt that this guy's the champion of 135? I think him versus TJ is going to be an amazing fight.
I think so too.
I think it's going to be a great fight. And we're really going to see TJ tested in the grappling realm, and we haven't seen him tested in that way in a long time.
I see it actually being won on the feet via Aljamain, just because he knows his range. He kind of fights like his limbs are kind of like pogo sticks, like the way he explodes steps, reaches steps back, and has such good balance.
Yeah.
I can see him beating TJ at his game of making him walk into a 2x4 of like not in a Kamaru Usman way, but there's going to be a break off on the feet, and I think Aljamain is going to be a step ahead in the age and explosiveness department, and just find a cross across TJ's chin, and then we'll see what TJ has left in the tank.
Right.
Will it knock him out? No, but I think it would spell the end. That
certainly leads to a takedown.
And this is a similar pattern you see with the evolution of boxing and MMA. It's MMA, so who the fuck knows?
Well, think about
that. Like, we might see TJ win by spinning fucking heel kick to the head. We don't know, but you always see like terms in boxing come to an end behind the jab and the cross. The jab and the cross, at the end of the day, trumps everything. Like, people come up, they're what's the Russian
Klitschko brothers?
No, not Klitschko.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Ukrainian Russian folk dancer. That's the boxer. Lomachenko. Fuck me, sorry, man. I have a lot of students' names to remember, so shit is dicey up here, bro. But no, Lomachenko. He was defeated via a jab and the cross.
Correct.
By Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah.
Then Teofimo Lopez, he was kind of also just like outbeaten behind like active head movement into jab and a cross. And you'll see with the smaller guys, like after a while, like those elongated patterns just get cut off.
Yeah, you think about Jose Aldo versus Chad Mendez, where Jose was so untakedownable, but Chad just kept hitting him off the brakes. Like, there was that one moment where Jose kind of sprawled back for a takedown D, and Chad just uppercutted the shit out of him.
Yes.
You remember? Like, that's the kind of intangible elements in the grappling that can't necessarily really be...
It's why I fucking hate cornering MMA fights a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like, I tell a lot of people, it's like in kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing matches, like, there's a lot less to look at. There's a lot going on, but it's a lot less than MMA. And that's why it's like good to have extra like corners, but like, you're always just like on the feet. Now you're just like, man, fuck.
Speaking
what?
of
Like,
Aldo retired.
I know, man.
Crazy.
Like, pour one out for. I can't take it anymore, man. I'm done. No.
Yeah, that's a bummer. And I was listening to Jack Slack's podcast yesterday, and he was talking about how much of a bummer it is that his last fight was against Murad.
I know.
And that they didn't.
I was hoping we'd see like one more.
A Brazilian retirement fight in Rio or somewhere like that would be amazing. You know, the King of Rio should go out in Rio. But in that fight, he did prove why he is so fucking tough. Why he's given problems to everybody in his career is because he's impossible to take down. Here's this guy who's got like the highest takedown by percentage in the UFC's bantamweight division.
We've been watching him fight at the highest level for 18 years.
It's like 15 for 15.
I can't believe he's only 36. The man looks 50.
Well, he is 50 in fight years.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, you saw in the Murad fight, like he's on the wall and he's like, this is number one bullshit.
Still
like,
not getting taken down.
Still not getting taken down.
Bro,
Like,
that shit was amazing.
Yeah. But I think that really showed in his heart. He was like, man, fuck, like, I don't think the title's there. Like, and he just went, might as well go out. Like,
but you think about what he did at featherweight and how lean he looked at featherweight and how nobody thought he would make bantamweight.
Yeah.
And then he did, and then almost won the title there, too.
I hope he comes out of retirement and fucks up someone outside the top 15. And like,
it'd be nice to just see
in
him.
2 years, like, he comes out of retirement and just merges
just
like
give
some
him somebody
kid off the computer series.
Just give him somebody in Rio that's not going to wrestle him.
Yeah.
And just wants to stand.
Yeah.
And just let him have a nice little outing. Like Brad Pickett, Uriah Faber.
I know, right? Like, I was thinking, man, like, him and Uriah Faber would have been a great rematch to see. That'd have been so fucking
what if
great.
they called up Faber and they were like, hey, we need you for another retirement fight? And he's like,
bro.
I'll retire 4 times from the UFC. Oh, that would be good, though. That would be good.
That would be great.
Their first fight is amazing. Do you have a favorite Aldo fight?
No, personally, it was like the Uriah Faber leg kick party.
That's definitely one of the most iconic MMA fights of all time.
Yeah. Like watching that and like all like my jiu-jitsu and wrestling buddies just like, oh fuck. And I'm like, yeah, dude.
Faber,
like,
people might not know if you're newer to watching MMA, but especially at that time,
dog on the ground,
Faber was a star.
Yeah.
Faber was the guy.
He was the WEC guy.
Yeah, WEC, that's right.
Yeah.
He was the WEC guy. Like he was their poster boy. He was there's like a video.
Even like
him and John Jones were in the Teach Me How to Dougie video.
Yeah.
Like if you think about
he was like the Paddy
Pimblett
Pimblett of California, of like how he is in England. Like they say that he's like sold out arenas before he got into the UFC. Like he took a pay cut getting to the UFC, and that's kind of how Uriah Faber was.
A lot of people said that the script for Never Back Down was heavily based on him, just his character. Like that's what. Yeah, because that was what was.
You still got to have a
if you lived in LA,
watch party.
If you lived in LA at that time and you're writing a script about an MMA movie because MMA is becoming popular, there's probably only one MMA fighter being talked about in Cali at that time.
Yeah. And
especially because the movie has smaller guys, not bigger guys. You know.
Yeah.
So it's like they probably did think about Uriah a little bit when they were making it, but. Faber, but Aldo versus Faber is definitely the fight that like I always think about when I think of Jose Aldo and how dangerous he is. But I also really like some of I like the Holloway fights, especially the second one. I love
a little rough to see the ending of that one.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
but he had a good like respectful rivalry with Holloway, you know, like him.
But
and
they
Holloway,
respected the shit out of each other,
right? Yeah, but they could still fucking get in there and throw down.
Yeah,
and obviously the thing about, I mean, he basically made Conor's career, even though the fight was so short. The build up and the everything to get to the fight was so big and iconic as far as creating the character, the persona that we know as Conor McGregor today. A lot of it came from that feud with Aldo.
Yeah.
And a lot of what made him a world champion was preparing for Aldo. I mean, that was the hardest he ever prepared for a fight. And he said in one of his interviews, he was like, the things I did in the Aldo camp, I've just done every camp since. Like, they just became the standard for me. And it carried him to 2 world titles, bro.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Aldo, a pioneer, and definitely, especially for Brazil, to not be as much of a jiu-jitsu guy, to be a guy who came into the sport as a jiu-jitsu guy, came in, started striking, fell in love with Muay Thai, then had that run at featherweight, cut down to 35, fell in love with boxing, and then
his
started
transformation from like low kicks to hands, how he did it, like fucking amazing to watch.
Yeah.
He really understood of changing with the times. He was like, shit,
dynamic.
To make my jiu-jitsu better, have great striking. Then he's like, oh fuck, I'm good at punching and kicking. Sick.
Definitely. Vicious low kick. Had a great counter calf kick game, because when he started seeing the calf kick come around, he started adjusting his game around that. I mean, like
one of the few guys to really kind of like deflect the calf kick with his style. Yeah.
He will.
He is someone to keep watching. Like even newer people, like you have to watch his. You
watch
have
that
to watch
WEC
how
run.
Dude, go back and
that WEC run is crazy, and right at the height of its craziness, he fucking knocked out Cub in like 5 seconds
with the double flying knee.
Yeah. And you watch it, and you're like, oh, he hit him with the flying knee on the left, and then they show it in slow mo.
Nope, he hit him
with the right and the left. Oh,
he did the double drag.
Yeah,
bro.
dude, I fucking love those fights. Those WEC Aldo fights where he's young and fucking almost like reckless.
Yeah,
they're amazing to watch. And then that refinement over time.
Like that was the evolution. Like, well, that's also like something that a lot of us were looking like. That's the evolution of MMA.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing these little guys get into it, because now like the big guys are like, we can't do all that, but we need to work that same transitional like phase that MMA is, where it's a constant transition.
Faber for white guys and Jose for Brazil, definitely.
Yeah.
They were the first big stars that weren't Tito, Chuck, Mark Coleman.
Yes.
Who was the what's the guy's name? He's a Hall of Famer. I feel so bad for forgetting his name. The kickboxer that beat Coleman, the black guy, first African American.
Oh, why did I just
Maurice
Smith.
Maurice Smith.
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah,
guys,
one of the founders of AKA.
Yeah, exactly.
Alongside like he and Frank Shamrock together, yeah.
That's another great person to study.
Go back and watch like the old Pancrase videos, watching Boss Rutan and Maurice Smith evolve from strikers into leg lock guys, or Maurice Smith starting the pattern of like counter wrestling with his striking.
Yes.
Working, hey, if you work the outside, the wrestler cannot get to you.
Yeah, Israel is definitely, in my opinion, like the modern
version of Maurice Smith.
Yeah, as soon as he fought Robert that first time, I was like,
oh, fuck.
This is some Maurice Smith vibes for sure. Yeah. I think that we've talked enough about the bantamweight division. We can move on to the co-main event of the evening. Gregory Rodriguez defeating Chidi.
Speaking of Brazilians that have just evolved from grapplers
and
to
look
strikers.
50.
And also look 50. I cannot, like, we were all shocked when we saw that he's only 30 years old. Like, it was his birthday or some shit. Like, he just turned 30. Like, I'm doing good for my age, but I'm doing amazing for my age. If this motherfucker... It was looking like that at 30.
Sorry, G-Rod. Sorry, buddy. I mean, it's just, you look like a dad. It's a good thing you got a baby on the way, because you've been waiting on, you've been sliding into dad status for a while. That cut, though, was,
on his forehead.
First of all, we didn't even talk about Song's cut. The Song's was fucking crazy. Right above the eye. Obviously, they stopped it because of the worry about the eye. And then it started to really open up after Sandhagen rubbed his head against it in the fourth. But his was, damage-wise, way worse, but the fight was able to continue because it was across here and all the blood was going past the eyes.
Well, they did a great job in between rounds.
You see where the fucking major, where Dana posted where the vein was exposed, or whatever that is, that tendon or whatever? Bro, I was like, imagine if that thing got sliced, and it's like, that would have been a lot of shit. Yeah, exactly. Great performance, weathered the storm. Chidi's striking was super clean, but
had him hurt in the first round.
G-Rod just made it a brawl. Yeah, stayed in there and made it a brawl.
Like that second round, he came out and just put that foot to the fucking
RoboCop
gas.
mode was activated.
Yes.
RoboCop, he earned...
Got him done in 90
If he hadn't earned his nickname already in any of his previous 13,000...
And I was telling y'all, I was like, man, I'm so excited to see Chidi in this fight. Like, because you can see why.
Too.
Like, I love watching his kickboxing.
He's
I'm
a
like,
good fighter.
Fuck, this is going great. But then, like,
but
you saw Gregory Rodriguez pushing through. Like, toward, even like the end of that first, I was like... Damn, he's still coming back hard at the end of that first round.
Yeah, like I said, I listened to Jack Slack's podcast a lot, and he made a great point about middleweight, where it's just like, middleweight's one of those divisions right now where it's very possible for you to just be the tougher guy and get further in the division.
Yeah.
And, we saw that, some of these guys don't even have to fight a wrestler.
These are people that are built for football that don't need the extra 100 pounds.
Right.
To play that sport.
Correct.
So what you're seeing are these guys that could have been professional football players that aren't playing football. So they have all of those genetics in place to be good at that. Like, these guys have a little bit of Genghis Khan DNA or some shit. Like,
yeah, but it is like
that's how we're seeing it. Or the extra weight to keep up for like something like basketball, around like, you know, how like now these guys have a bit more even muscle spread from like grappling and striking, and you're seeing these guys that would have been amazing in other sports become amazing at fighting, and that includes durability.
Yeah,
like you're seeing like incredible durability levels come up. Like, hey, it's tough to see, but it's part of it. It's like fun to see.
That big boy on the Contender Series last night, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy was massive.
And the slobber knocker from last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Who was that? He gives the backflips. He's fought at like super heavyweight, but he's like 5'8". Chris Barnett. Yeah, like the durability of these guys. Like, it's some people are just built for that shit, and Gregory Rodriguez is just built for this shit.
Yeah.
He built different, and seeing his evolution from LFA.
Shoutouts to Andrew.
Yeah. That kid, man.
He's built different.
He built different. But no, Greg, you go to his fights in LFA.
Yeah.
And he had a big turnaround. Like, he was the former LFA champ, got knocked out cold, then came back to improved boxing, and now he's hitting cross step off sixes. Like, his footwork patterns are that of a educated
the
boxer.
hands have gotten a lot higher.
And you see, it's
level.
like easier. Like, you know, these guys, this evolution of boxing. If you know how to control your punches, it's easier to get hit. Mm-hmm. Like, that's that tough trade-off of, like, training behind technique. You learn how to literally roll with the punches. And he's like, well, fuck, like, oh, I'm naturally tough. Perfect. So now he's putting that education behind, like, you see people like Justin Gaethje.
Yeah.
Knowing when they can get hit and when they cannot get hit. They make for great fighters.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why Gregory Rodriguez is showing that, like, man, he's going to be in the title contention in the next couple of years, I think.
Maybe. Dude, this division's wide open right now.
Oh, I said not title winner or challenger, but in contention.
I mean, yeah.
He'll be fighting for a number 5 spot, and we'll see if he can make it in the top 5.
The division itself is crazy open right now.
Fucking gangbusters.
Sean Strickland is in the top 5.
Yeah, that's true.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
I'd like to see Gregory fight Sean Strickland in like 3 fights.
Woo! Not even. Give me... I mean, I just think he would win, so I want it sooner. But yeah, I think that Rodriguez is definitely improving in the hands. I would have liked to have seen him like actually use some of the grappling once he realized Chidi was tired.
Yeah.
He just kept brawling, but that's okay. I mean, when your face is hanging off and, you know, it's fucking to Valhalla, whatever, dude. Do your thing. You know, he got the win in a fucking really difficult fight.
Look up Valhalla in Brazilian. That's where he at. Yeah.
Then we had Andre Fili versus Bill Algeo. And I told you that one had a lot of potential because both these guys are super tough. And it's interesting that they were so identical measurements and everything, and then they kind of fought very similar throughout.
But Fili saw that he just had more striking range.
Where he had more everything.
More everything.
He had a little bit more everything.
Yeah, he was like, if like there were like dead even stack bars, like he was that one that was just one ahead in every way.
Yeah. Split though, because of the third round.
Oh, was it a split? Oh, that's right.
You remember so the big controversy, or the big point of discussion, I should say, with this fight.
I thought it was pretty one-sided for Fili. Yeah, like Algeo started
that's the big point of the conversation was like, Andre Fili has the back for 3.5 minutes in the final round, but the entire time he has the back, Bill Algeo is punching him
like
over
hitting
his
him
shoulder.
over and over, yeah.
And it's just like, what do you value more? You know, do you value the fact that Andre was able to control him and had his back that whole time and was trying to choke him the whole time? Or do you value the fact that it wasn't enough of a threat for Algeo to be worried about getting choked, so much so that he could punch over his shoulder? It's a little weird that any judge would score it for Algeo in my mind, but I kind of almost see why they did. It's just fucking dumb that they would do that.
Yes, agreed.
It's like, I understand why you did that. That doesn't mean it's any better to do that, you know? Because on an infinite timeline, if the round wasn't 5 minutes, I get it that it's a sport, so it doesn't have a time limit, but if the round hypothetically wasn't, who do you think's going to die first in that situation? It's definitely not going to be Fili.
Definitely not going to be Fili, yeah.
And I'm glad that he picked up the win despite it being a split, because it did look a little dicey when they called that second judge for Algeo. I was worried about it, but he picks it up. And he just continues to be a person that's always going to have gainful employment with the UFC because he's not a boring fighter. And he'll fight anyone. He fought Yair, he fought Gamrot
literally does not give a
he
fuck.
will fight anyone
Yep.
they put in front of him, and they finally put someone in front of him that was, not a future champion or a future top 5 guy.
He's a super fun gatekeeper.
And
That's
he
just
is.
what he is, and he knows his part. And
Yeah,
he's just
for
like,
sure.
he's not going to take any fight easy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Then we had Joe Pfeiffer, the new UFC Golden Boy.
I went back and I rewatched this one because I was like, damn the jab on this kid.
Somebody pointed out something interesting about his opponent. 3 straight losses by knockout in the UFC in the past 2 years.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, then that was supposed to look that way.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that takes the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Like, because the other
Joe
guy,
Pfeiffer's entertaining.
he's good, but that other guy, no slouch. He was good. He just, he looked like he had been knocked out 3 times in a row because Joe just stayed on him with that jab.
Yep.
And then you see it started off at the end. He went jab, hook, and that made the guy start to stand up, and that's when he was on his heels and he couldn't get anything off. And then Pfeiffer just found overhand, just missed, found it again, jab. The guy put his head above the jab, and Pfeiffer just, boom, clean gentleman's overhand ear to ear, and it put him down. And I was like, man, fuck, that's a bummer, because that means it was supposed to go that way. And I was like, oh shoot, that ruined the enjoyment of that jab.
Speaking of the enjoyment of Joe Pfeiffer's career, I was thinking about how cool it is that someone came into the UFC and instantly had a catchphrase, "Be Joe Pfeiffer" is the catchphrase. And I was like, damn, why does Dana like this so much? And then I hate to be bringing up this podcast constantly, but it is so good. If you don't listen to Jack Slack's podcast, you care about MMA, he's one of the most brilliant minds in all of MMA. And he said, he brought up a very interesting point outside of the fact of the opponent and the matchmaking, the pushing of this guy and everything the UFC has done for him is to better package the Contender Series.
Oh, 100%.
Because the Contender Series fighters made up out of 12 fights on this card, 11 had a fighter from the Contender Series.
No fuck, really? Wow.
And just do the math on this. For your first 4 fights in the UFC, after you get signed on the Contender Series, you're making 10-10, right? So, for the cost of 4 of these fighters to get booked on this card, the UFC can get Marcin Tybura to show up for a card, right?
Yeah.
So it's that's why the Contender Series is so important, is because the UFC has found a new way to cut costs, and it's by just simply paying people less than people thought were even possible already. People already bitch about fighter pay enough. And now, guy, Joe Pfeiffer,
that's
goes
Dana
on
playing it with where it's who else is still going to be able to pay it? Bellator can't pay a
He goes not to a guy like Joe Pfeiffer.
No.
And then a guy like Joe Pfeiffer goes on TV and is like, the Contender Series is the best thing that ever happened to me. I was homeless. I have a fucking place to live now. Dana White pays for my subway after training. And, now I don't have to live out of the back of a Camry anymore.
Right.
And he'll fight for 10-10, and they'll put him on the 4th slot down on the main card, and they'll sell shirts that say "Be Joe Pfeiffer."
Feed a dog a steak.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And there's 1,000 kids right now that are 5-2 or 5-1 or 6-0 in their MMA career, and they're looking at that and they're like, I want to be Joe Pfeiffer.
Well, because you see a lot of
Pfeiffer.
times 6-0 still getting paid 500. Maybe the norm is more at that point it's more 1,200 guaranteed and maybe 500 to win or something like that.
I don't know. You probably have a little bit more experience with this realm than I do as someone who's coached a lot of professionals. But from my understanding, a lot of promotions don't really do show win. Mm-hmm. They just do.
No, you're seeing it a lot more of a flat fee.
Yeah.
Or still based off a lot of times pro fighters are still pushing tickets and tables to get a cut of it.
That's the bonus.
That's the bonus. You'll see a lot
even amateurs get a cut of that.
1,500, maybe $3,000 if they know they're a good ticket seller.
Dude, how much do you think? Shout out to our boy, by the way. I'm not talking bad about him, but how much do you think Joshua Oxendine made off of Next Level Fight Club with the amount of fucking tickets he sold for that? There's guys
$6,000 to $8,000 maybe.
There's guys at this local level.
If Vermont is getting that much of a cut, but
right.
I've seen it happen in Myrtle Beach back in the day between sponsors tables at House of Blues in Myrtle Beach. That place Cody Jones and those guys you're talking thousands of dollars per fight. Like, it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big deal
like,
when you're
Myrtle
only
Beach
making...
was a poppin' fucking fight town for like a solid decade. It still is.
Still is, as far as training goes.
But as far as but
shows.
now a lot of those fighters are the coaches now. And so
Yeah.
you're going to see like another cycle come through, but like with even better talent now.
Especially Cody's guys. Cody's, and then obviously Bouchard's got like a 25 kids he's training in wrestling, so there'll probably be nightmares in that regard soon. But Ryan Bader, when he first went to Bellator, he was saying, now, people always said in the UFC that I had a boring style, and now I can like go out there and fucking fight and not worry about getting knocked out and just like fight in a way where it's like half my paycheck's not on the line. I don't have to lay and pray. And I do agree that can create more exciting fights, but it's that kill or be killed blue collar appearance that the UFC wants to put on for the world, despite being owned by a fucking Hollywood movie company.
Like it's what feeds the masses because it's making people fight for a piece of meat. Like it's tough, it's barbaric, but like hey, that's also what makes people tune in for the fucking bloodshed.
But if the UFC was still grassroots, people wouldn't be objecting it.
No.
But it's so corporatized and so big that people are like, there's expectations that come along with this, and the idea that you're still essentially making people fight over a piece of meat
they're telling
is a
people
little
like,
dystopian.
hey, you gotta earn it. But it's also like that's the fair thing of it. Like, and a lot of fighters understand like when you do martial arts full time, like you earn your wages very much so even working at the gym of like teaching privates all day.
That's true.
Just to make a living and stuff like
that's
that.
True.
Like and if you
But the idea is once you get to the UFC, all your dreams come true. You're good. I mean, that's how it is for every other fucking sport in the world. Once you make it to the NFL, once you make it to the NBA, once you make it to the NHL, all your dreams come true. You're good.
Now the UFC is more and more like that, and it's great to see. I think. Like I still like some people are pissed about. I'm like
not with a 14% revenue spread.
I think they do need to up the revenue spread. It's insane.
The fighters are.
If they up the revenue spread to like fucking 20%,
I thought things were moving in a decent direction, and then Nate had that interview about The Rock's shoes, and he got all mad about the shoes, and I was like, damn, I thought The Rock was like a good fucking guy. Like, I thought he cared about fights. I thought he cared about fighters.
No, he cares about his pocket more than anything. He's just like every other person that's a cold-blooded capitalist.
Right.
I mean, he's more of a warm-blooded capitalist, I think, but at the bottom, like, he's gotten successful because he gives a fuck about himself more than anybody else. Like, The Rock is a fan of fighting.
Yes.
He doesn't owe shit to those fighters, but, like, that's how, because he knows he's making his point, like, his cut. Like, he's a fan of fighting. He likes his name to be attached to it because it makes his Hollywood image look that fucking cooler. Because the masses see, oh, The Rock is around MMA. I bet he can fight.
He's the last alpha male.
Yeah, like, and that's how like he's.
He really is. I used to have a stand-up bit about this when I did comedy, and it was about how The Rock is like all of our stepdads because we used to have, in the 80s we had Stallone, we had Schwarzenegger, we had Van Damme, we had these guys that had a whole genre of movies dedicated to them. And it just seemed like, damn, Chuck Norris and this guy, and they're always in these fucking movies. They're just pumping out shit. And now it's like the reason The Rock has so much work is because he's taking over for all of their jobs, essentially. And it's just him. He's the only guy who is muscle bound. I guess Momoa's coming up now, but and he's like a discount Rock. But yeah, I was really disappointed to find out that The Rock, his company, had negotiated that deal without considering what the fighters would get and if it would be fair.
Nah, he doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's either he doesn't give a fuck and it's all about the money, or he's just really incompetent, or it's both, like a combination of both things. So.
World caliber people are world caliber because they're number one in their space, and that's how they become number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like the truth of it. Like, yeah.
Outside of that, we had Rodrigo Nascimento versus Tanner Boser. Fight sucked.
Anthony Hernandez submitted Marc-Andre Barriault, who is still one of the most athletic fucking Canadians I've ever seen.
Yes.
Next to GSP.
Damon Jackson with that
the man who looks like he cannot fight, but always fucking comes out to fight.
Nice KO, brother.
Dude, absolutely starch. What was the kid's fucking name? Real up-and-comer.
Pat Sabatini.
Pat Sabatini, man. Everyone speaks highly of Pat Sabatini. And Damon Jackson just came out and took his fucking head off in a minute. And but like, hey, and he's coming off of his
but when it
brother
happens
just
that
passed
early,
away. Did you hear about that? Like,
yeah,
his brother
yeah.
passed away like the previous week, and he said he needed to go.
Dude, that's why that Barnett win hit different for me too. Did you hear about what happened with Barnett?
No, I didn't.
Dude, when he was doing his last fight before this one, where he lost, his wife was dying, and she died.
Whoa.
And she passed away, and this was his first fight since she passed away. And he won.
Whoa,
and I was like,
that's
bro,
heavy.
It made it hit a little bit differently.
Ow.
And Andre Feely got on the mic after this card and said that he just lost a child, and didn't tell anybody about it until the post-fight interview.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. He was like, the whole camp I've been dealing with it. I lost a kid and didn't tell anyone, and now I'm saying it now. And then he started to get emotional, and his team had to kind of hold him up, But
Fuck, I completely missed that because
I think you were actually not in the room when it happened. I think after the fight you had gone to the bathroom.
Dude, I guess I pee after every fight.
Yeah.
I fucking live off of water and caffeine. If I have one seltzer, my body's like everything's gonna go.
I always convince myself that I want to watch Trevin Giles fight, and then when the fight happens, I'm like, oh.
We always remember his highlights and not his fights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Loma Lukbami looked very solid in her win against Denise Gomez.
Do you think she was concussed?
Yeah.
Yeah, she seemed like she was.
Yeah.
That's what I was reading a little bit about that online.
People also fighters that get hit a lot, and they're not used to being put on their heel that much because of that takedown aspect of MMA, and they get caught on their heels. So she is getting rocked a little bit easier sometimes, I think, and that's that hard thing. You're seeing that in ONE FC a lot with the Muay Thai fighters transition to MMA. They're getting caught for that split second, they're on their heels, and they're getting hit with shots. So A, small gloves, and B, the person is stepping through a fucking car in traffic with a glove on it. And it creates shots they're not used to getting hit by.
Right.
They're used to getting hit here. They're not used to getting step off both while they're on their heel here. And it's that tough learning curve for strikers in MMA now. She's got the takedown defense, her footwork leads her takedown defense. But the thought of the takedown is still making her get stuck and hit.
She's Thai, right?
Oh, very Thai.
Yeah, I was about to say. She seems so Thai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Thailand. Has several Muay Thai fights.
Literally born at Tiger Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Literally was conceived and was birthed there.
Most likely.
There was some really cool grappling on this fight, both between our boy Tony Gravely and Basharat in their fight that opened up the prelims. Or no, they didn't open up the prelims. They were the first
Nicholas
fight.
Mata did against Cameron Van.
That was a nice knockout too. But yeah, Tony Gravely and Basharat had some sick grappling. Tony did very well against a guy who I think a lot of people probably wrote him off against and gave this guy who's undefeated a good test. It's always good to see guys from NC in the big show and doing well. Sucks that he didn't get the win, but I don't think his stock went down in this one because he lost to an absolute beast and he gave him a fucking good run. And Jillian Robertson back in the win column against Maria Agapova.
Yeah.
Who did not defend the... I watched the replay of the sequence where Jillian took the back and I was like, that looks like you didn't defend the choke at all. Your only defense was biting down your own tongue.
Yeah, oh, God, yeah, that was rough. I mean, they're former training partners, and so Jillian Roberts even said, oh, as soon as I get her back, it's a fucking done deal.
Yeah.
And you saw Maria, she was just trying to, tuck her chin down to defend it, and, her mouthpiece had popped out. And then all of a sudden, you're like, where'd her tongue go? Oh, her mouth was filled with blood. I think she bit the tip of her tongue off. Or not. I think she skinned her
went
tongue.
Through it,
yeah.
Trying to get it out. Yeah, that was tough to watch. Jillian is so she's in kind of a weird spot, right? Because she's not got the greatest record in the world. And everybody knows that she can't.
Out of Goat Shed, I think that's going to be a good gym where she gets a bit more. She's going to have another good little run, outside the 15, outside the 10. She'll probably work her way back into it, but
okay, hold on.
What?
Let me do the camera. We'll talk about Goat Shed. I want to talk about the Goat Shed gym in Florida gaining some notoriety
because of their training videos. They just go fucking.
What
wild.
Do you think? Do you think that's a fake? Do you think that they really be going like that in training, or do you think? I don't think there's any way you can train like that.
It's just the highlights. There's a lot of highlights.
If that's even a highlight, what if it's
but if that's every day, then how the fuck are they doing?
What if they just have sparring sessions and it's mandatory?
Hey, okay, I'll say this: have you seen sparring sessions run by black belts in jiu-jitsu but not striking?
Yes.
What happens?
I don't want to talk about it. But
that's what's happening. Like, the owner of Goat Shed is a Royce Gracie black belt. Like, some people say his jiu-jitsu super legit. He's kind of an asshole. He cares for the fighters. I think he's going to give Jillian Robertson lot of fucking... Well, he cares for someone...
I think he cares for a fighter's career.
Who's in the UFC. He cares about her because she's in the UFC right now, so he's going to be giving her some extra attention she needed. She probably wasn't getting at ATT. You know? So for her to go in there, I think that there's definitely not many women there. So she's probably getting, like, a little bit more focus, like, more sparring sessions are going her way.
Yeah, but you and I were talking before the show about our gym and how the culture you've created there around sparring and of the approach to technical sparring. And a lot of people at your gym don't even have mouth guards because they're so not worried about getting their fucking teeth knocked out because no one's going to rip on them. And then you were saying that I feel like this is the kind of culture that can create a world champion. And it's like, how can you feel that way about your gym if your mantra is, we go hard enough to hurt each other all the time?
You can't, yeah.
Exactly. Like, maybe you'll get a Jillian Robertson, but also Jillian Robertson is now 11-7.
Yeah.
You know? It's not like... I don't want to say... It's a new gym. I don't want to say he'll never have a world champion.
He cares about her because it's going to help him put his gym in the master... Like, that's it. Yeah. Like... He's
so will those videos, but that's why I think.
But it's a different area. Like, he's a bit more still in the underground. Like, the general public doesn't know shit. Like, us people in the community a bit more. Like, we see them pop up a lot more. Like, there's a lot of UFC fans that are like fans that don't train, that don't do shit with gyms, that are just now hearing about the go, and that's what he wants.
Yeah, and that's also it's also
and Jillian Robertson's going to be the most legit person out of that gym. Like, she wasn't made there. But he needs...
They got one or two other people that are...
I think so.
Really
but they're not... Yeah, but, like, they're not going to be world champions.
Maybe
they will. Like, we'll see.
But that's why I want to say, like, I don't want to say for sure this guy will never have a world champion because there's a chance...
They're also in, like, a different kind of, like, hotbed of gene pools and talent pools down there where, like, more people are attracted to train that way. It's also, like... Some gyms can survive... It's also... I'll say this, in striking... Especially around boxing, some gyms can survive off that hard sparring culture. Like, you go to Holland, they go hard as motherfucking fuck. Like, there's no way to describe sometimes how hard they go several days of the week. But, like, each place is going to be slightly different, and striking is that there's little subtleties in the differences of jiu-jitsu between places.
Right.
There's massive differences in certain areas with striking. It's weird. It's always been that way. Like, striking is never the same in each spot. And that's when you see those kind of, like, sparring exchanges. Like, they're probably still doing more grappling-based, and that's just the crazy exchange they get. Maybe they reel it back, maybe they don't.
See...
You know, but some gyms, they do better with that go fucking hard type of way.
But I also think that there's a chance that is 100% like a smoke screen. Like, he puts out these videos... To attract those people. To give this impression that his gym is this way all the time. But in reality, it's actually a super legit MMA gym.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of, like, the legit training videos. I'm like, shit, that's legit.
Right, yeah.
But, like, you just see the highlights of the crazy shit, the crazy beefs. I'll say, like, motherfucking people in Florida are crazy. And that's what I said by, like, you probably just have more, like, alpha-type, hard-ass motherfuckers that are just in that area around Miami. You're going to run into some motherfuckers that have just done hard shit their whole life.
Right.
In that Jorge Masvidal kind of way that a lot of us normies aren't used to being around. Like, when I was living in Florida, I was like, you're all insane. Like, but that's how the culture is down there. You see a lot of gyms go hard because that's just how it's hot and it's hard down there. Mm-hmm. So I believe it's just like, hey, they have very legit classes. But yeah, just like every gym in Florida, shit gets out of hand in sparring. But like, it doesn't matter how technical it is. Like, there's just crazy people down there.
Do you remember a couple of years ago, and even more recently, like right before COVID or even during COVID, John Salter would put out these videos where he was showing a legitimate technique.
And in the background,
there's that guy, I forget his name. I actually interviewed him after his fight in Myrtle Beach. Or no, it was in Greenville, Next Level Fight Club. The guy who is doing all those crazy flips and going so hard, he actually fought for Next Level Fight Club. But I just remember those, and then I watched those Goat Shed videos of the crazy shit, and I'm just like, what if somebody saw one of those videos and was like, what if we did this but a little less obviously a joke?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I can totally see that being a thing. I feel like, but that's just
I think it's a great way to fucking make your gym blow up on TikTok.
Yeah, yeah. I think like that, you probably have like, even in technical sparring, when people are in fight camp, people turn it up.
I also think
I'll also say this, it's also different to see it from the outside like that and to see it right in front. Like, I've been, like, they're going fucking hard in those videos.
But also, Jillian didn't really show me anything in this fight that she didn't have when she was at AT&T.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
you know.
I mean, also, it's the thing where AT&T's too big for its own good.
Yeah.
It's too high level for its own good, where you can never really attract. Like, back when they got Jillian, she was like 16, I think. And it's like, you probably can't attract a 16-year-old like that now. You're going out and recruiting girls right out of the wrestling room, or right off the judo mat, or right off the karate pedestal, or whatever it is. There's probably people at AT&T that are constantly looking for young prospects, but a girl like Jillian, that was built like Jillian when she started MMA, can't just walk into a training room at AT&T and probably get on the mat and get good good reps. Who knows? Maybe she can, but there's a reason that even someone at her level now is like, I gotta go somewhere where I can be more focused on.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, she's gonna recognize good training when she sees it.
A place like the Go Shed,
something.
If the doors are open to every person who walks in, and they want to spar, they're going to get to spar, it seems. And it's like, you will find a diamond in the rough sometimes that way. You know, just bashing.
You also don't know if that's also just someone from another gym coming in to spar.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. And then someone else in the gym is turning it up. Like, that happens even at, like, sometimes on tech sparring days. Someone that doesn't understand that vibe tries to turn it up, and my guys also know to turn it back up. And you see full-on slugfest
happen. Jillian breaking a guy's ribs in the sparring room that time.
Andrea Sturgeon, I think, is a team effort. But no, but it's like one of those things where it's just like, if like it's still like, hey, you better protect yourself, like you know, and it's like, hey, if you turn it up, my guys have no issue turning it up. Like, and I'm always watching, going like, I'll let it go, I'll let it go, I'll let it go. Okay, let's stop right there. Like, you know, and he is like on top of it still. I'll say that he's watching it go down, but I think he also lets people go like, hey, like, you have to go into that fuck around or find out depth of water. Like, that's that. Like, sometimes you see rolls get out of hand. All the time. It's just always a bit more of like, the lion's eating the gazelle when you see it with striking. And it's a bit more of a, so I feel like it's just like, that happens.
It's just a little scarier with striking.
Oh, it always is.
Brain damage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see me watch, like, sparring videos all the time. And you're just like, fuck, it looks like they're killing each other. I'm like, I mean, yes, but no. Like, they're keeping each other honest.
Some guys can train like that, and some guys can't afford to train like that.
No,
not anymore. You know?
No, yeah.
So that's just what my little rant about gym culture.
No, it's fine. Like, but like we were just talking about like Trevor Loken earlier.
Yep.
That motherfucker can go hard a lot more.
Probably would be right at home in the Go Shed.
Exactly. Like, even when he went out to Duke Rufus's, they were like, "Yeah, can you stop hitting people so hard on the ground?" And he's like, "What?" Like, he's like, "They were doing it to me on the feet," and they're like, "Oh, well, fair." Like, he's one of those, like, he's a hard motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, like his older brother,
he's
hard motherfucker. Like, yeah, like, that's it. Like, you know, and hotbeds like Miami, like a real fight city, like that kind of place, you're getting a whole lot of like tough motherfuckers. So like that to us looks like 120%. That actually might be like their 70%.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like, and you'll see it. Yeah.
For sure. You know. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about a little bit about gym culture. I'm pretty sure at least everybody that I've talked to that listens to the show, they train in some capacity.
Yeah.
So they've probably been in a gym where they felt safe and a gym where they felt unsafe with training partners. So I'm sure they can relate to that. But other than that, only thing going on this weekend is Bellator in Dublin. I actually, hopefully next year, or maybe not this Dublin show, obviously, because it's in 2 days, but the next Dublin show, I'm hoping that I can go to that, because I've been trying to go to Ireland for many, many years, and it would be cool to go and see some MMA while I'm there. And for some reason, Bellator is always putting on shows in Ireland. They always have a lot of Irish fighters on their roster. I don't know if that's just a good market for them or what, but Benson Henderson,
great European market,
is fighting Peter Queally this weekend in the main event.
Don't know shit about Peter Queally. Fill me in on that guy.
So Peter Queally is a former hurler and also a former soccer player for a pretty well-renowned Irish football club, and then he transitioned into MMA. And like everybody else in this division,
Is he out of Straight Glass?
He is.
Okay,
yes, of course.
That makes
the
sense.
only gym in Ireland.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he's a longtime training partner of Connor, Dylan Dennis, Gunnar Nelson. He's got good grappling, but he's very, very athletic and very explosive and very powerful for a white man, of course.
Is he chinny?
Not so far, but I will say this. Like everybody else in this division in Bellator, he has finished Patricky Pitbull once, and he has been finished by Patricky Pitbull once.
Yeah.
So he was knocked out by, he was TKO'd by Pitbull in his last fight, I believe. But he does have a win over him via cut, doctor stoppage cut. Ryan Scope is his other Bellator win. He's kind of getting started. Like, this is his first big name, is the Benson Henderson fight. Obviously, it's in Dublin. It's in his backyard. He's 13-6. Benson now 29-11.
Wild.
Coming up on 33 fights for Benson Henderson here. Pretty nuts. The master of the split decision, Benson Henderson, as he is known. But yeah, Keely's got power, obviously, and he's under John Kavanagh, who's one of the most knowledgeable and well-respected European black belts out there, and has trained a lot with Nelson and Connor, so I'm sure he's got good grappling. Or he's displayed good grappling in his previous fights. He got the cut on Pitbull from his guard with a downward elbow, if I remember. So he's got really strong elbows.
So is this going to have like a toss-up for who could take it home?
It just depends on where you think Benson is at right now, I think.
Right.
I think the odds makers will probably favor Benson. I haven't looked, but I feel like the general consensus is that Keely is like a Bellator guy.
Right.
Like a guy who will probably always be in Bellator. And Benson is a guy who's seen the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can beat a guy like that, then even if he is as old as Benson is now, it bodes well for your future within Bellator, you know? But who knows if he'll be able to out decision the decisionator. Yeah, I mean, it's so tough with Benson. It's like, you know, he has a fight where he looks great, and then he has a fight where he doesn't look so great. Yeah. His last fight, he didn't look so great. Fight before that, he looked great. Or no, his last fight was the Islam fight. He looked good in that fight. But also a split decision.
Yeah.
Other than that, Melvin Manhuff's fighting Romero.
Man, I love watching Captain CTE fight.
This is the fight that you watch, right? Like, you got to think
someone's gonna
his
die.
ass out.
No, and it's like, Melvin Manhuff is the guy who fights at middleweight. He's the guy that knocked out Mark Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that when you still see him hit people, they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yoel Romero is no longer as explosive as he was a couple years ago. Still a freak of nature. Still got like that he broke that dude's chin in half, like in the third round of a fight, like at the buzzer, right? Like, you know, like he still has it. So like, man, I think if Manhoof gets off first, we might see Yoel get knocked the fuck out.
I would love nothing more.
We can also see Melvin Manhoof just run into a jab and get knocked the fuck out.
Yeah.
So it is impossible for this fight to go past the first round.
Yeah, I think it is almost impossible, except for the fact that Yoel is so stoic. Like, that's my least favorite thing about watching Yoel fight, is that he's very patient now. He's very just like, I'm not going to do anything until I hear the clapper.
Right.
And when I hear the clapper, you better be holding on to something, because I'm going to fucking blast you with everything I got right now. And he will often make a round so lackluster and inconsequential that just that 10 seconds of activity where he looks great will win him the round. Mm-hmm. And if he does that against Melvin, yes, I agree. Melvin could get into a rhythm and find his range and find his timing and pop him. But if Yoel is smart, he'll come out guns blazing. But I haven't seen him do that since the Luke Rockhold fight. I haven't seen him do that since the Luke Rockhold fight. So since then, he's been kind of gun shy.
For someone who's been watching Melvin Manhoef fight forever, like, I really want to see him win.
I really don't even want to say he's gun shy. I want to say he's just purposely implementing a strategy. Yeah. Like, he's very much so waiting until the last 30 seconds or the last minute of a round. I don't want to hear it say the clapper and be hyperrealistic.
This might be a fight where he knows he still has to pull that trigger like off the bat right away. Like, I feel like, you know, he is going to be faster and hit harder.
If there's anybody that Yoel can
he can beat him with a single punch. Like, he can beat Melvin with.
If there's anybody Yoel can knock out in one hit at this age, even it's this guy.
It's Melvin Manhoef, and that's why they wanted this fight to go down like that.
Yeah,
because it either makes Bellator look better, or it makes Yoel's stock stay high for a little while.
Everybody thinks of Yoel as like the uncrowned king of that division, or the guy who should have been champion but never was. And it's like, Yeah, I think he probably beat Rob in that one fight.
Yeah.
And didn't go his way. But the Israel fight wasn't close.
No.
So the guy who's got the belt now, kind of beat him handedly in my mind. I know a lot of people thought a lot of stuff didn't happen in that fight. But I think that they're building him up as their champion. And they want him to fight Manahoff, and then he'll fight the actual, I think some Russian cat is the champion over there. Or no, was it Gegard? Gegard lost the belt to the Russian guy.
Gegard lost the belt to...
The Russian.
Oh, it's Fedor's understudy.
Yeah, the one who loses half of his fights.
Yeah, absolute specimen of a human being. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Fedor's little understudy is the I don't know his name right now. There's too many fucking names.
I'm sure he'll be ringside of this probably.
Oh yeah,
because they're probably gonna be looking to build that fight in the future. So, anything else before we get out of here?
The UFC signed a 17-year-old Chupacabra.
The Contender Series, yes, the Contender Series.
Yeah, we can chat about that for a
Yael Rufus, Jr. I think.
Also Daniel Zellhuber. He was the kid I told you about, that Mexican golden child.
Yes.
He had a tough first fight in the UFC, man. He looked good, but he still went to a decision on the Contender Series. Lost his fight, so it's gonna be tough to bounce back. But we'll see how good that kid is. But speaking of other Latin fucking future superstars,
dude,
he's on the radar. But this kid from Tuesday night, I remember Talia was she and I were just watching this kid's transitions, and we were like, God damn, he's 17. He's watching someone from ADCC this past weekend.
Raul Rosas Jr. is his name. Yeah,
his body lock and guard passing with the body lock.
That he almost had.
Talia was like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, it's kind of like a bail banana split to a long knee bar, with the hip. And she was like, what the fuck? And you saw him go for it over and over. And you saw him almost get a really deep banana split too. That was wild to see his body lock control and how he used his legs like arms. It was at that level of MMA now, it's are you fucking kidding me? Now it's just, we're seeing jiu-jitsu and MMA just elevate to a different level. Where it's not super complicated flashy stuff, it's just that constant wrestling body lock pressure.
Yeah. It was very impressive.
With foot-hand guards.
You're impressive when you don't get a finish and you still get signed by Dana, enthusiastically.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're going to see that kid fight the Contender Series again and then a fight night.
No, he's signed right to the UFC, so he's going to fight. He's going
Bo Nichols doing another fight in the Contender Series. Mm-hmm. Oh, because it was a developmental contract.
Right.
He just got a
contract. This kid's also got a lot of fights outside the UFC.
That's true.
Bo only had one fight outside the UFC.
That's true.
But, this kid, he's a good fighter.
Even on the feet, on the feet, he was very flashy. He doesn't have any knockout power on the feet yet. But dude, he threw a spinning back kick in the pocket.
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
He's got good striking. I just can't picture him on the cover of a video game.
No.
He looks like an Elder Scrolls character that someone turned all the sliders up all the way.
Yeah.
He's elongated and
when I said people look like UFC video game characters, I'm I don't know if I'm looking at a video game or if the simulation.
He's the creative character.
He is.
You. It's like
you made him at 4 a.m. off the bender, and you're just this will be funny to look at tomorrow. And the next morning
he walks up in the cutscene with all the normal characters,
and you're just what the fuck did I make? And his jiu-jitsu is set all the way up, and you're just God damn it, what have I done?
Yeah, I thought his fight was.
Please don't kill me, bro.
I'm gonna
look under my bed for this
either
kid.
one of us. Yeah, for sure. But that'll be it for this week's episode of the 10A Fightcast. We'll be back next week previewing the action of the Mackenzie Dern fight versus Yan Janan, and probably talking maybe about Melvin Manahoff knocking out Yoel Romero. We'll see. Fingers crossed. All right, guys, until then, enjoy yourselves. Have a fight.